Hello everyone, it's Wednesday afternoon. It's my usual update for the week. I'll talk a little bit about the discussion last week, where we are this week, and just a few updates. I always find the discussion on sociometry fascinating because it's such a new type of methodology for most of us. For most of us, this is something we've never experienced before, familiar with. We're all familiar with the idea of ethnography, interviews, observation, archival evidence, but sociometry is rather novel. I'd like to see people do more of these kinds of methods in a dissertation. They would be particularly useful, I think, looking at examples of educational leadership and relationships among educational leaders in a school, for example, between a principal or a superintendent and other staff, as well as faculty. Something I hope some of you will consider in your own dissertations. Looking at this week at archival data, this is really one of the methods that I'm most familiar with. Largely, my background is a historian. Archival data I find fascinating to work with because we really have to use our critical thinking skills very carefully as consumers. Asking ourselves questions, for example, of who generated that information? Why was it generated? What was included compared to what might have been left out? And these kinds of questions, when we ask them, really open up all kinds of possibilities for meaning in terms of archival data. So think about that whenever you come across something archival. Look at the readings for this week. Who generated it? Why was it generated? And what was left out? Because many times information is written for a purpose, and the purpose may not be purely informative. Oftentimes we leave behind archival data for bureaucratic purposes, as in the study on rejection letters. What do they say to us beyond just, you didn't get the job? They try and say something about the organization in terms of advancing the organization, making it look good, covering its bases legally. But those are the kinds of things to think about when we look at archival information, because we have to be cautious and not necessarily take things on face value. Just a reminder, drafts of your methodology are due Friday of this week. You don't have to turn in a draft. That's purely optional. But if you decide to do so, and I encourage you to, make sure you send it to my office email address. That's lee.doomer at lee.doomer@ttu.edu. And be sure to send it from your TTU address, your TTU email. Reason for that, university sometimes sets its junk mail filters rather high. So if you send it from a non-TTU address, entirely likely it'll get filtered into junk. And that happens with a lot of information, and not always is it junk, but keep in mind the university really encourages us to use our TTU addresses for all university communication. In terms of the draft, keep in mind this is purely the methodology. This is exactly what a Chapter 3 would look like in a dissertation proposal. There's no introduction. There's no definition of terms. There is no literature review, and let me really emphasize that. There's no literature review here. You start right with the problem statement, and that's it. Go into the methodology. Nothing but the methodology. I had one person ask about help with writing. If you want, you're always welcome to run these past the University Writing Center. And actually, I've got my phone book open there. I don't have the URL on me, but they're located in 175 of the English Philosophy Building. Their number there, if you want to call and ask for hours, or if you can send something to them electronically, their number is 806-742-2476. I'm not sure if they can look at something via email, but it's an option, and give them a call if you have any questions about their hours and what kind of services they have. I've had terrific results from them in the past with students who have gone over there. So if you have any inclination, please go right ahead. One other update, and this is going to actually translate right into what I want to talk about next. We got new phones here at the university, so the phone numbers for faculty have changed. I'm not sure if our directory has been updated yet, but my phone number here has been changed. Let me see if I can come up with a new number for you. Okay. My new office number. My email's the same. Address the same. My new office number, area code 806 834 0492, and that goes directly to my office. Apparently now all the faculty have direct lines to their offices. There are no more extensions anymore. I hope that the university, the College of Ed has updated our directory, but I'm not sure. But if you need my number or if you need to contact me for any reason, that's how you can reach me. Turn to the update on the research project. I think this certainly has to do with some of the stuff we've read in this class, especially with respect to Moffitt and preparing for the research and going into the research setting. Last week and this week we did practice interviews regarding the adoption birth certificate study that Dr. Freshley and I have been working on. Just to remind you, it's Dr. Janet Freshley with Counselor Ed and 3 doctoral students, 2 in Ed Psych and 1 with Counselor Ed. We're interviewing adult adoptees who've received their original birth certificates. Just a reminder. We did some practice interviews last week, and I'm glad we did so because it really worked out a lot of bugs. Because we received new phones here in the College of Education, it interfered with a lot of the technology on our computers. So what we wanted to do was run through a practice interview using Skype, which is what we would like to do to collect the data, interview our participants via Skype, so we can obtain not just the verbal data, but the nonverbals as well. So I opened up the Skype in my office. The students went downstairs to the computer lab, one of the grad student labs on the 2nd floor, and opened up a Skype so they could practice interviewing me as a subject. I'm not really going to be a subject, but it's good for a practice interview. There was no sound. We couldn't hear them. They couldn't hear us. We had allocated about 1 hour for the practice interview, and we spent fully the first 15 minutes just trying to get the sound to work. What we had to do was, and I don't know how I did this, if you asked me to do this again, I probably couldn't do it. I pushed some button on the phone, and we were able to get sound through the phone handset. So we were able to see each other through Skype, but I had to use a handset in order to hear the students. Far from ideal. And of course, if we were to go into a research setting or conduct interviews with something like that, we would look absolutely incompetent. So one of the many reasons we do practice interviews, not just to polish our interview skills, but in this case to uncover difficulties related to the technology that we didn't anticipate at all. So finally, with some help from tech support after the interviews, we were able to figure out what the problem was. The new phones tend to take over the default settings on the computers. So I had to go into the computer and change the default settings for the audio to get it to work here. So that was taken care of. But we didn't have nearly enough time to work on interviews, especially probing. So after last week, what I did is I put together a interview script, and I'm going to write a little reminder to myself. I'm going to send you that today, just so you see what an interview script would look like for a standard interview. And it's verbatim, includes the research questions, but it also includes introducing oneself to the research participant at the beginning of the study. I think you might find that useful. So I'll send that to you today, but I developed after last week a script for them to use. And then we encountered other problems this week. We did more practice interviews yesterday. And one of the difficulties was making sure that people that while they can see their script, we don't want to make it look like they are reading directly from the script, word for word, like, oh my God, that's just going to turn people off. That's no way to develop and maintain rapport. So we worked on helping them become familiar with the script. And then we worked on probing. And one of the things I did during practice interviews, they would ask me a question, and I would answer it, but I'd answer it in a purposely vague way. I'd say something, well, that brought up a lot of mixed emotions, or that was a very powerful experience for me, without going into it, without elaborating, to make sure that the students recognized those kinds of cues, so they would go back and ask probing questions. And Dr. Freshley is going to put together for them a list of very general kind of probing prompts that they can use in the interviews. And I told the students, don't be surprised if you wind up asking 5 or even 6 probing questions for each one of the research questions. That's perfectly normal. In fact, that's I hope we can get to that level of skill in order to mine really deep, meaningful data. But it has turned out that the practice interviews have really helped us. We've identified technical problems and been able to resolve that. We've identified issues regarding having a script, and we've been able to work on that. We've identified that we need to work on probing skills, and we've come up with a solution, some general prompts to use for the students to identify that. So this kind of practice is really essential so that when we get into the research setting, we can do so smoothly. And it's not just about us looking competent. It's really also about us having respect for our participants. We don't want to waste their time. These are people who willingly give us their time. They share, in many cases, very powerful emotional experiences. And maybe we can't compensate them for their time, but we can at least show them that we acknowledge and respect their contribution. Last thing we're going to do is, we can't conduct interviews yet, although we have had a couple people who've heard about the study approach us, ask if they can be part of it. And these are, in some cases, people we know. So once we do have human subjects approval, we will interview those 2 individuals first, because they might be a little more forgiving about our maybe lack of polish initially, and that will also help us refine our interview skills, our probes, help us develop and maintain rapport when the study begins. So I share this with you just because you may find some of this useful in your own preparation. And ideally, everything that we do in our research as faculty should in some way enrich the classroom environment and enrich the learning environment for you. So I hope that helps. If you have any questions about the study, or you'd like me to elaborate on anything, please feel free to ask. I'm always happy to talk about this, especially if it will in some way help you with your proposal, your dissertation, or your career in general, and it's what we're here for. As always, I'll be checking the discussions every day. Look forward to more discussion at the end of the week, and then next week we have some time off. I'll talk to you later.